Many small businesses run into this particular problem where they send invoices, but the money that they receive from the customers is not against the invoice, it's a bulk payment. So for instance, if a company raises two invoices, one for $50, the other one for $100, they perhaps might not receive the payment against the invoice, but they might receive a bulk payment of $100 from the customer. Now they have to set off that $50 invoice and the $100 invoice, one paid and one partially paid, manually in their Excel files somehow. In today's business series, we are talking about an invoice and payments dashboard in Power BI, which is where it automatically knocks off the invoices against bulk payment received from the customer, and a bunch of nice metrics along the way. You're going to have a lot of fun watching this video, and you'll learn a bunch of things around modeling, calculations, and good visual design. No further ado, let's start. Alright, let's just start with a high-level understanding of the dashboard and how it works and looks and feels. So up on the top, we have a slicer to pick up any particular period. Let's just pick up the base period, which is Jan 18, which is where the data is beginning. So I've picked up a customer, Cube Corp, and if I take a look at the month of Jan, I can see that in the month of Jan, we have all of these invoices created for that customer, and we have the invoice value. That means how much was each invoice, and then we've also got how much balance or how much money have we received from the customer. So in total, for the month of Jan, we have raised $6,645 of invoices. Against that, we have received $2,540 of receipt. Now, that money that has been incoming is not against any particular invoice. We have to adjust the invoices manually, as many as we can, starting from the first invoice of the month of Jan. So I take a look at the first invoice, 1945. That can be adjusted against this money, so that is ticked off. But if you take a look at the next invoice, it's $2,090, and obviously there is not any money left after adjusting the first invoice. Therefore, there is a balance of $1,495 negative, so on and so forth. Let's just take a look at what happens in the month of Feb. If I just roll down to the month of Feb, we get more money, $8,670, and now we are able to adjust 4 invoices from that money, and then we have pending invoices. So if you keep on moving forward in the timeline, you will actually see the data grow, and you'll be able to see that how the invoices are being adjusted, how many invoices are paid, so on and so forth. There have been times in this particular customer where the customer has actually overpaid as well, and that is actually a good thing. So if you take a look right now, we have $5,995 of prepayment, excess payment that we have been able to collect from the customer, and all of his invoices are paid, and we have a balance of $5,995. On the right, we have a ledger here, which is the monthly ledger. I can see that in every single month, what was the billing, how much money did we get, what is the accumulated amount of money, and what is the balance at the end of the month, so on and so forth. A couple of nice metrics around this. We have the company level data. That means the entire company has got how many invoices, how many billings, and how much is the balance. We have a chart that shows the status of the customer, and this particular dashboard gives you a good insight of how the invoices are being set off as the customer pays you in bulk by using the FIFO method, first in and first out method, to knock off the invoices as you are getting paid. This dashboard was a part of one of our consulting assignment, which is where we helped a small and medium scale company facing such similar problem solve a massive cash crunch issue, which is where they wanted to understand the customers that are not paying on time, or what can I do to improve my customer payment collection strategy and things like that. Now, in case you are in a similar situation and you need help putting together the dashboards of your own company, be it this dashboard or any other dashboard, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. There's a form and you can fill it up, and our team is going to be there to help you out very soon. Back to the video. Before we start building this dashboard, there are 4 key ingredients essential to understand to be able to build this dashboard. The first one is that this dashboard is always an as-on date dashboard. That means this is not the data for the month of July. This is the data for all the months up till July. So it's an as-on date dashboard. You might have also seen that the table actually grows and shrinks. In fact, all the visuals, the table, this particular table, the chart grows and shrinks as I select the month. So if I actually happen to click on August, the chart actually extends to the month of August. This table grows, and so does this particular table. And all the metrics also change accordingly. That is part 1, the as-on date logic. The second most critical part of this dashboard is the knock-off table, which is this particular table. That what logic have I used to take a look at invoices and knock off the invoices that have been received against a bulk payment. So if I have received a bulk payment of $46,000 against the total invoices of $33,000, which are far lesser, I'm able to actually knock off all the invoices and I can have a tick against that. What calculations go behind to do this kind of calculation is something that you will learn, and you can obviously apply that to any other condition that you're trying to apply this into your own business logic. There are obviously certain bells and whistles in this dashboard to make it look pretty, clean, white, and neat and tidy. I'll obviously discuss those aesthetic effects in the dashboard as well, that how do you make it look clean, tidy, and ticked and tied and professional. And we'll also take a look at that what more could have been done in case we were to extend this dashboard, which obviously we did because this is a part of our consulting project that we did it for one of the client. And I'll talk about just in general that what more could you do with this kind of data. But before we get into any of that, let's understand the data that we have and the data model that I have built at the back. All right, when it comes to data, I've got three ridiculously simple tables. So the first one obviously is the invoice table, and just to kind of restrict to the problem that we're dealing with, I've just got 4 columns in here. So the first column is the date when the invoice was raised, the invoice number and the customer to which the invoice was raised, and what was the dollar value of that particular invoice. 4 simple columns, nothing that complicated. One row is one invoice for one particular customer. As simple as that. Now, once we have the invoices data, the next data is the receipts data. And then in the receipts data, we don't have an invoice number because the customer is not paying us against an invoice. The customer is just paying on a certain date. So we just have 3 columns in the data. So we have the date on which the customer paid, which customer paid, so the customer ID for that. And then we have the amount as to how much amount has the customer paid. There is no invoice number. And that's the amount that we have to start setting off against the all invoices that could be marked paid with the money that we have received from the customer. These are the 2 tables, simple enough. And then we also have a customer's master table or the customer's dimension table, which is where we have the customer ID and perhaps the name of the customer. Now, the customer master table could have been with more columns as well, but for now, I am just restricting to the problem at hand. And obviously, you can expand that later as well. Let's just move to Power BI and take a look at the model that I have been able to build. All right, in Power BI, and the model is ridiculously simple. We have a 2 fact table star schema. Take a look. So the first table is the invoices table. I have just loaded that as the way it is. And I have linked the invoice table with 2 columns, which is 1 column in the customer ID column in the customer master or customer dimensions table, which is using the customer ID, one to many, simple, straightforward. And the other one is obviously the date column in the invoices table and the date here in the calendar or the date table, which is again a one to many relationship. We also have the receipts table. The receipts table is going to be linked against the customer ID, which is right here and right here, and obviously against the date of the payment received right here and right here, obviously. Now, these 2 tables, which is the receipts table and the invoices table, are not going to be linked with one another, although there is a date field common in both of these tables, but it doesn't make sense to link these tables because that is going to be a many to many relationship. However, we'll still solve the problem. That means we will start knocking off the invoices against the money that we have received on a certain date from the customer. Let's just see that how do we do that. The very first thing that we will talk about is that how do you build an as-on date logic inside of your Power BI report. If you want to show anything which is as-on and you want all the visuals to grow or to kind of squeeze based on the as-on date selected, here is a good method to do that. If you take a look at the moment, if I just select the month of April, everything actually is going to squeeze down to just 4 months, which is Jan, Feb, March, and April, the visuals, the tables, and this table as well, so on and so forth. How do you do that? For this, we would need a disconnected calendar table or a disconnected date table, and then we will use that. Because this particular slicer, or any slicer for that matter, is going to be created on a column of a table, we would need that table for sure. So let's just actually take a look at that. What is my logic to create that particular table? I'm going to go to the data tab, and I'm going to show you real quick what is my disconnected table looking like. So it's a really simple table. All that I'm doing is picking up the month end from the calendar table, and in that month end, which is this particular column, when does the month end? So 31st of January, 28th of February, 31st of March, so on and so forth. I'm adding one more column to that, which is the month column, and I'm just representing that as month name and the year in the shortened format. That's about it, just a 2-columnar table. If you take a look at the relationship, I don't have that table linked anywhere, and you can see that the disconnected table is right here. It's not connected to any other model. This particular column is the column that we are going to use to build that slice. So I'm going to go over to the visual once again and perhaps go to the work in progress sheet. And in the work in progress sheet, this is the slicer that I have created on that particular column, which is the month column coming obviously from my calendar disconnected. At the moment, if you click on this particular slicer, nothing really happens to my visual. You can see that we have a simple visual with a filter of a customer. Nothing really happens. In this particular visual, we have 2 columns. The date column is coming from the calendar table and the invoice number column is coming from my invoices data. If I just select, it's not growing or it's not decreasing. So how do I actually make it work? For this to work, we will have to start to write a calculation, and the calculation is going to be be filtered depending upon what we have selected right here. So let's just start to write our first calculation. That means what is the amount for every single invoice, and that amount, which is nothing but a straightforward sum calculation, is going to have an additional filter that is going to take a look at what has been selected right here. We are saying that, hey, go to the invoices table and please sum the amount column, but I would also want you to apply a filter on the calendar table, which is where please take a look at what has been the date selected. So this is nothing but my as on date. And if you want to take a look at what this measure is, I can right click on the measure and I can peek into the definition. And I'm just saying that in the disconnected table, which is the table that we just created, please take a look at the month end column and just give me blank otherwise. So this is nothing but whatever is selected in the disconnected table, which is right here. Now I'm saying that please pick up all the dates which are lesser or equal to the month selected right here. As simple as that. Once I drag this measure into my table right here, it starts to just filter the table up until that date. You can see that we have the latest data up until 19th of April, and the table is obviously filtered. If I perhaps change this, so I just maybe pick up May or June or July, this table is obviously going to grow or is going to reduce in the number of rows that we have. This is the first pattern that we have to remember. That means this table that we have been able to create, which is restricting or expanding the visual based on the date selected, we'll probably use it everywhere where we want the tables to grow or contract based on the data selected. The second most important thing in this dashboard is the knockoff logic. That means how am I going to take the amount that I have received and start knocking off the invoices from the start of the time and then see how much has been paid and how many invoices are unpaid. Let's just take a look at the example that I have built here. So I have selected the month of March here, and I can see that all of these invoices were raised and the total money received up until the month of March was $8,670. Now for the $15,000 of invoices, I can only create as many as $8,670. So I start taking a look at the money received and I start knocking off the invoices until the time that I reach that particular threshold of the amount, which is 8670. And after that, whatever has been the invoice, if it's not fully paid, I mark it as a balance. That means this could have been partially cleared, but there is still some balance pending, which is 1155 from this. And all of this constitutes to 8670. How are we going to do this kind of calculation? Let's just start to do this. To be able to do this kind of calculation, what I would need to do is I would need to take a look at what has been the accumulated total of all of the invoices. So I want to accumulate the values of the invoices. So if in the first row we have 1945, then I will write the same number right here. But once we have 2090, I will add these two numbers and write it here, and then add the three numbers and write it here, and add the four numbers and write it here. This is going to at least tell me that until the date selected, what has been the accumulated amount in that particular date. So I will actually get the running total of all of the invoices in every single row right here. That is part one. Let's also kind of do that as we go along and we see to build the logic. Now, the way that I have done that in Power BI is slightly different because I've used Power Query to do running totals, but you can also do that using visual calculations, although that is going to limit you a bit where you can use the expanded logic. But for now, it's good to understand visually. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the visual right here. In the Home tab, I'm going to click on a new visual calculation and I'm going to call this, hey, I want to have a running sum. It asks me, hey, what's your field or what's the column on which you would want to have the running sum? Invoice amount is the column that I would like to have. I click on done, and that's where I get a running sum. I'm going to click on back to report and I'm back right here. Once I have gotten the running sum of the numbers or the invoice numbers right here, the next thing that I would want to know is that how much money have we received until the certain date. So if I'm selecting the month of March, I want to take a look at all the money received until that date. Now, whatever has been the money, let's just say 8,000 something dollars. I don't remember the amount. So let's just say $8,000. I want to write 8,000 everywhere in the cell. And I want to see that if I subtract 8,000 from the running sum of the invoices, is there any balance pending or not? And that's the way that I'm going to do this calculation. So let's just first start to write that how much money have we received? And then we will start to attempt to have the money received in every single cell right here. I've created a receipts measure that is literally summing up the receipts amount in the receipts table. And I've also got this filter that, hey, limit the receipts to only this particular date so that I can just take a look at the receipts. But as soon as I drag that receipts measure in my visual, it kind of shows me a weird result. And you can see that it kind of goes down all the cells right here. Now, the reason why this is happening is that at the moment, receipts are marked against a certain date. And obviously this date, which is the date from the calendar table, is trying to filter the receipts data. It is able to filter it. And we are able to see that, okay, on the 25th of January, we might have received some money, and that money is 2540. But because if you take a look at the data model, we also have the invoices in the visual right here. This invoice number is nowhere able to filter this particular amount column, it is showing all the possible listing of the invoices. And we don't even care about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to modify this particular calculation so that I get to see the total amount, which is 8670 in the cells which are right here, right here, right here, right here. For the very reason that the invoice number filter is anyways not acting, the only filter that I have to remove is this particular filter, which is the date filter, for which I'm going to create a new measure, which is called the receipts till date measure, which is going to show me the total receipts until a certain date and only for the relevant rows of data. I've got this new measure right here, which is again taking a look at the receipts, the measure that we just saw, limiting up until the month of March right here. And once I have been able to make that measure, I'm just saying, hey, from that measure, once you have limited until the date which is selected right here, why don't you also remove this filter at all from the visual so that I'm able to take a look at the total in all the rows of the data. And this filter, which is the invoice filter, is not acting anyways. So I get to see the totals right here. Now, because I want to limit the totals to the places only where the invoice number or the invoice amount exists, this condition I have written at the start. That means if you see the invoice amount, then show me the total receipts till date. Otherwise, just leave the rest of the rows as blank. Now, once you want to clean up this visual, you can go back to the visual and you can see that, hey, I don't really want to take a look at the receipts, but I want to take a look at receipts till date, and the visual starts to clean up a bit. Now we have the two critical numbers with us, which is, hey, how much money have we received until the end of March? That's one. And what has been the accumulated billing up until the month of March? That means now I can just obviously go ahead and start to adjust. That means this is where I end up my 8760 balance. This is going to be partially paid. I'm going to write the number right here, and these are going to be fully paid, and I can do that calculation, which is a very, very simple balance calculation, and I'm going to show you just that. All right, here is the balance calculation that I have built. It's simply checking that, hey, is the date in the context, is the invoice number in the context? That means currently am I taking a look at a date and a certain invoice or not? And if these two conditions are true, then I run the invoice level calculation, which is the balance. So I take a look at the total receipts till date, which is this particular column or this measure, and I take a look at the accumulated invoices, which is nothing but the running sum. Now, at the moment, the running sum happens to be a visual calculation, but I have actually made the accumulated invoices as the running total calculation. Now, this is a small adjustment that I have made in Power Query to be able to calculate the accumulated invoices, and I'm going to show you that, which is going to give me more control because I have it as a measure, and here we have a visual calculation. That's the only difference. And once I take a difference of these two columns, I can get the balance, and I can see that these invoices are fully paid. So you have balance left over, balance left over, balance left over, and then this is where you get a negative balance and you have the customer to pay you more. Now, let's just take a look at this particular calculation, accumulated invoices, and how did I make that in Power Query. So if I just go over to my invoices table right here, you can see that we have a running total amount right here, and the running total amount is doing the running total by the date and by the customer. So if I actually apply a filter, which is, let's say, any particular filter, so let's just say 14 Orco, and I sort the data in the ascending order, you can see that this is the running total that grows as the invoices are created. It's a very simple Power Query calculation. So if I just go and click on the edit query and I take a look at my invoices table right here, you can see that we have a bunch of standard steps. I sort the data in ascending order. So customer ID is sorted in the ascending order. Date also is sorted in the ascending order, just in case the data is not sorted. Then I do the grouping of the data. And in the grouping of the data, while I'm doing the grouping, I also create a run total fx. Now, run total fx happens to be a function that can give me a running total, and that function can be found right here. So if I just maybe click right here, you can see that we have the running total. That's the function that I have. The function actually accepts two very simple inputs, which is give me the table and give me the column for which you would like to do the running total. And if you just take a look at my invoices table right here, you're going to see that here I can see that I have given a table, which is the table right here, and I'm saying that please do the running total of the amount column. This is going to give me the running total for every single customer in the table. So if I just take a look at the results right here, you can see that the amount column was fed, and this is the running total of the amount where the rows are sorted as per customer and as per date. And that's it. Once I expand it, I change the type, and this is the column that I additionally get, and we are good to go. Part 3, which is where everybody gets super stoked, which are the visualizations in this dashboard. So I've been able to put together some basic visualizations. Let's just take a look at what these visuals are. So at the moment, I have this table that we were speaking about. We have the invoices which are knocked off, and we can take a look at the balance. It nowhere quite looks like the one that I showed you, which is the final product, but hey, we have something. We also have a monthly ledger, which is where I can take a look at what is the amount we have billed to the customer, how much have we received from the customer, and what is the ending balance of that particular customer in that month. So we have this monthly ledger balance. We also have a line chart, which actually shows you in one glance that how much is the accumulated invoices, how much are the accumulated receipts, so on and so forth. forth. And we've got some card visuals here. That means what's the total invoice amount, how much have you received, if there is any balance right here. Now, this is nowhere close to a finished visualization. It's very clunky, it's untidy, and we need to do a lot of sophisticated design work here to make it stand out. But rather than actually using standard design practices, which is adding shadows and adding random colors, I'm going to teach you something very, very slick as to how can you improve the design by adding more context into the visualization and just cleaning up the entire visual. So there are essentially 2 or 3 things that I'm going to do. Strong alignment, that's part 1. I'm going to add a lot of context to the visual, and that context adding is going to be the design itself. And the third thing that I'm going to do is just make it neat. Just add a lot of white space and make it super clean, super neat, and my design is going to be ready. All right, let's just start with everybody's favorite part, the design and the look and feel of the dashboard. And here we have it. Now I'm going to start with the very first point, which is alignment. Now, when it comes to alignment, I am a sucker for good alignment, and I'm going to show you a couple of things that you would notice in my dashboard. So if you take a look at the left-hand side panel right here, this is very strongly aligned all the way across. So everything is perfectly aligned and nothing is actually going outside of this boundary space. And this is also the case on the right-hand side as well. Everything is just perfectly aligned. So is the case for all the titles. So if you take a look at this one, this is perfectly aligned. And if you take a look at the titles right here, this one is perfectly aligned. And so is all of these titles, so on and so forth. You're also going to see that the bottom of the tables are also strongly aligned, and nothing is going to go beyond the boundary at the bottom as well. Now, this strong alignment is going to make your dashboard look very, very cohesive. The second thing that I would strongly urge you to follow in your own dashboard design practices is just go with a clean and white background and without any borders and without any boxes. Now, I could have chosen to add a lot of boxes here, 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 and this entire box, and this is like a box, and this is a box, and this is a box, so on and so forth. But that would have made my dashboard look very heavy, more shadowed, a lot of objects in the dashboard, and that would most importantly have taken the highlight away from the data and the insights and put more clutter into my dashboard, which is the shade here and here and here. So I just generally tend to use a cleaner white dashboard with just a panel up on the top, which is nothing but my title and my important slicers, and the rest, everything is super clean, super white. You would also have noticed this particular pattern in a lot of modern apps, which are super clean and super white, and the user feels a good premium experience. Now I want to talk about some design aspects, tiny nudges of information that I have added to the dashboard that are adding on to the design of the dashboard. Let's just take a look at one by one. So the first thing that I have done is that rather than actually showing that this is an as on month dashboard, I clearly write a label underneath the title or the slicer here, which is data shown as of Jan 19 ending. That means this is the as on dashboard. It's not the dashboard for that particular quarter. I also added a little conditional formatting or like a little sign here that quickly tells me that by the time we ran to the month of Jan 19, this particular customer was in red. That means he's not paid fully. So without even taking a look at any of the metrics of the entire dashboard, the customer quickly understands that this customer is underpaid at the moment. If you change that, so for example, if I maybe go to the month of December or November, at some point in time, this is going to turn green, and you can see that we have a positive balance of the customer. That means we have received more money from the customer than he owes us. So if I just go back to the month of Jan and take a look at the rest of the dashboard, you're also going to see that along with the very metrics of that customer, the invoice amount, the receipts, and the balance, I've also shown for context that what is happening at the company level. That means how much have you billed for the entire company, what are the receipts that you have received, and what's the balance for the entire company, and of which this customer owes us $7,825. If you take a look at the line chart here, you're going to see that the line chart does not have any legends, and just by the color, you'll be able to understand that the red line is the billing and this one is the receipts, the blue line is the receipts. And quickly, you'll be able to understand that if you have a red here, that means this portion is red, you're in danger. But if you have a white in the end, you are actually good and the customer has overpaid. So small little changes, but they add to the insight. They also add to the design of the dashboard. If you take a look at the bottom, I've also added a customer KPI. So you can quickly take a look at which invoices are underpaid or not paid. These are cross marked and these invoices are paid without actually taking a look at the data itself. It also shows you a bit of a summary at the top of the table. Now, writing generic titles is one thing, but writing meaningful titles is a whole lot different altogether. together. I've done a video on that. In case you want to take a look, I'm going to leave a link, and you should definitely take a look at how should you write titles. At the moment, you can see that we have 40 invoices, 5 are unpaid, and these are marked right here. And the balance of all of these 5 invoices is 7852 that needs to come from the customer. On the right hand side, we have the ledger. To make the ledger more interesting, I also added a little green nudge right here, which is where it shows that, hey, these are the months where we have received the payments have been incoming in these months, so on and so forth. And that is nothing but my dashboard. Now, this dashboard obviously is an extraction of a smaller piece from a larger work that we did for one of the clients. And the clients actually asked us to build a strategy around customer payment collection. That means once you have been able to build this dashboard, we can create many top level metrics around collection of money and the policies and things like that. We can create a holistic summary of bad customers that have the tendency to not pay you soon enough, and good customers where you have adequate balance from the customers. This can affect working capital. This can affect a whole range of cash flow working solutions inside of the company. And the dashboard that we built for the company had a whole lot of metrics and variety of what if scenarios where you adjust the payment cycles of the customers, adjust the policy of the bad paying customers, and take decisions based on that. This is just a small excerpt from that particular dashboard, but I hope this gave you some understanding of how do you build these sophisticated dashboards inside of your own organization. Like I said, if you're interested to be in touch with us and help you with your dashboards and consulting work, we'll be more than happy. There's a form. In case you fill that up, our team is going to be in touch with you. Thanks.